Okay, well, why don't we begin? Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming and good afternoon. My name is Hillary Griffin, and I am the co-president of the Madison Art Society. And my partner in art and my co-partner is Nikki Travellino, who is, I don't know if Nikki's out there, but anyway, Nikki, if she's signed in, she is signed in from Italy right now. So very lucky lady. She's been there a long time, a month, and we miss her very much. So we can't wait to welcome her back. So anyway, today, the Madison Art Society is presenting an oil painting demonstration by award-winning artist, Mike Laiuppa. We're all in for a treat with this demo. So I'll tell you about Mike in just a few minutes. Before we begin, let me just remind you, as Marianne had requested, everybody will stay muted, please. Just so that it's a nice smooth demonstration without interruptions and side chatter and whatnot, because these mics, unfortunately, they're very sensitive and stuff gets picked up sometimes that you don't want people to hear. So let's all stay muted. Throughout the demo, you can hit the chat feature and you can write any questions that you may have for Mike, and I will try to keep up. It's periodically I'll check out the chat questions and read them off if it's a good time for Mike to answer those. And then at the end of the demo, we will have a question and answer session as well, where again, you can use the chat or we'll do a hands up feature. We'll recognize you, we'll unmute you. So before we begin, let me just tell you a little bit about the Madison Art Society. We were founded in 1976, nonprofit art society. We have about 250 members coming from Connecticut shoreline, various parts of Connecticut and beyond. For 48 years, Madison Art Society has been promoting the arts for artists ranging from the hobbyist to the professional level. And we strive to promote, encourage, and support other artists within our Madison Art Society community. And we also promote and share art with the broader Madison community, the shoreline community, as this was advertised in the paper. Anybody can join in from anywhere. So, and we do that through these Zooms, through exhibitions, live events, and some festive art openings that we have for shows. And on that note, let me tell you about some things coming up for the Madison Art Society. Each year we hold about 3 art shows, and currently we are now accepting submissions. If there are any artists out there, I know there are quite a few of you, we're accepting submissions for the 48th annual juried show, which will be on display at the Scranton Library. Receiving will be, it'll be all an online jurying system, and then receiving will be August 5th if we're all lucky enough to get in, because you know this can be competitive and tricky getting in. So if you don't get in, don't feel bad, because the next one you just met, you probably will. We know how that goes with judges. So anyway, that is happening August 5th. We'll be receiving, and we have a very fun reception planned, an opening reception on Thursday, August 10th. So please join us. You're all invited. And our receptions are, they're generally very well attended, very fun, very festive. So on August 10th, Thursday night from 5 to 7:30, please join us for the opening reception of this juried show. And at that, we will be awarding thousands of dollars to the award-winning artists. There'll be about 10 awards. Top prize is about $500. And then the awards are pretty generous. They're all generally a couple of hundred and up. So please make sure you come to that. Also, mark your calendars for August 19th. We have a live and in-person demo with Elena Gerard, who will do a watercolor and gouache live demo at the Scranton Library from 11 a.m. to 1. So that's August 19th. All right, good. You can learn more about us at the Madison Art Society CT.org. We encourage you to become a member. We'd love you to also volunteer. We always look for volunteers, people that you need something to do, or you want to just get more involved in the arts. We would love you to give us an email. Let us know that you're out there and that you'd be willing to help us. So now let's turn our attention to our artist, Mike Laiuppa. So Mike will spend this session painting some very lovable and adorable subject matter, which we all love, little cute animals. So that is what Mike will be doing. He will be doing pet portraiture or animal portraits. So that is what we're in for right now. Let me read a little bit about Mike, and then he will tell us a few other things that he'd like to add. So Mike Laiuppa is an oil painter and personal trainer, Numi Fitness, living in Simsbury, Connecticut. Art has been a part of his life for as long as he can remember. He credits his father and his attention to detail and strong work ethic, and his mother for her support and encouragement to constantly explore every aspect of life with the utmost passion. At an early age, Mike could be found with a pencil and pad of paper in hand. In his teens, he played with oil paint, then moved on to 2D and 3D, and finally passed through acrylic paints, only to settle back into oil painting. Mike says, oil paint feels alive to me. It can be pushed, prodded, streaked, and steered, but no matter what, you do, it will remain true to your intent. I find it a fascinating medium with which to create. It is by far the easiest I played with, but truly the hardest to master. It is for these reasons I feel drawn to commanding it. So please visit Mike's website, mlaiuppafineart.home. And we are going to hand it over to Mike now. So take it away, Mike.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Can you hear me okay? Any echoes or anything?
A little nice and loud.
Let me try something here. Any
Can you hear me better now? No.
Yes, a little.
Okay. I'm having trouble with this. I think it might be the two going back and forth here, but we'll see. All right. So I've got something set up today that is going to take you through a little bit of a journey of how I paint. I tend to do my paintings in about 6, 8 to 16 hours. So we don't have that kind of time today. So I have to kind of break it up a certain way for you. And the way I'm going to do that is starting with pretty much a blank canvas here. I did a little bit on this side last night. And then over here is what I'm going to show you to start with. And this is going to be my my imprimatura. So if you haven't heard of that before, it's basically toning the canvas, getting it to a point where you can start seeing something come into focus. The way I like to paint is like the Polaroid pictures, right? You take a picture with a Polaroid, the little film comes out, and then it kind of slowly comes into focus. That's the way I like to paint. So we'll start with that, and then it keeps me looser as opposed to what I used to do when I started, which was gridding. So I would grid, or I draw out my subject and stay within the lines and color in the lines. That's all fine and good for learning, but I think that really makes you feel a little more trapped, if that makes sense. So I like to be a little more free with the painting as opposed to coloring in the lines. So it's okay if you do that. I would encourage you, if you do go up to the lines and try to fill in the lines and that kind of thing, I would encourage you to lose those lines. So push outward, come back in, push outward, come back in. So John Singer Sargent would do that a lot. He would layer. So you'd see the, he'd maybe have an imaginary line in his head and he would overlap it. And then he would overlap that paint, overlap that paint. So you're kind of pushing back and forth, finding and losing your shapes. So the most important thing to me after composition is values. So I always stress with my students, values, 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 dark and light. How dark and light is something. So if you think about photographs from way back when, before they had color, you could tell it's a photograph of a real person, not because of the color, because it's not there, because of the shadow and the light playing against each other in the right way. And if you get that right on your canvas, it's going to have a convincing feeling. So I'm going to go ahead and get started in here. One of the screens you have on Zoom here is my palette. So if you'd like to switch back and forth between that, if you'd like to watch mixing and that sort of thing, and then maybe ask me questions about, you can ask me anything about anything really, and I'll do my best to answer it for you. So I'll just go and go and go, and you want to stop me or whatever, we can do that. So I'm easy going. I'm going to bring this camera a little closer so you can see the canvas, and I'll show you how I'm going to start this one. So again, like this is what I had started, and I'll show you over here. This is what we're going to be working on here to start. So it's about 11 puppies on the back of a Chevy. Okay, so I did about half of that over here, and it's only a shape. So when I'm working on a piece, I don't care about the eyes, I don't care about the nose, I don't care about these little details of hair. I care about this outline shape around the animals. That's what I care about first. That's the most important thing. Okay, so if you're focusing, if you're working on a piece and you're focusing just on the eye, it's like, oh, this looks so bad, but if I can get that eye looking right, it's all going to come together. It won't. I can guarantee you it won't. No matter how much you work on the details, no matter how beautiful that eye is, your painting is not going to work right if you don't have your shapes and your values, your proportions, your angles right. The big stuff has to be right first. Okay, so get the big stuff right first, and then you can put the icing on the cake with the details. And sometimes you might not even need the details. You'll step back and go, that's enough. I don't need it. So a lot of the times with fur and that sort of thing, I like to, as opposed to one I recently did of a bear. I'd show it to you, but it's hanging up in a place right now. I wasn't planning on doing all the fur for that, but I ended up doing that. So you want to think of fur in this case as clumps. So you're not really going in there with a fine detailed brush. You don't want to get your rigger brush. I barely use my rigger brush. I use my rigger brush to sign my name. That's about it. So you don't want to go in there and just do this unless you're a photorealistic painter, which is fine. I just don't have the patience for that. I don't have 100 hours to spend on one painting. So I'm not going to do that. I want to get it done. I want to have fun doing it. And if I have to leave something out, I leave something out. It's not a big deal, right? As long as the main idea comes through. So we'll get to this. And again, if you want to switch over to I'm going to move myself over on this side. Move this so you can see this part a little better. Everybody can see that okay? I know you can't answer because you got the mute on, but hopefully.
You see it.
Okay, so, and if you want to switch the palette too, you can go back and forth. And what I normally start with my Imprimatur is I pick a tone that I think is going to help me build an atmosphere for the painting. So in this case, I saw a lot of kind of warmer colors, and I decided I wanted to go with a mixture of raw umber and burnt sienna. And it's really kind of arbitrary. It's really not, there's not an equation for it. It's not like, oh, I have to do these colors. Sometimes I'll paint a portrait. I'll do a burnt umber and a cerulean blue to give me a neutral gray. So it depends on what I'm feeling that piece is going to give me or wants to give me. So normally I start off. This is originally just a canvas from Jerry's. This is an art alternatives. Generally, I like to use Masterpiece. They're more expensive, but I use them when I do commissions because I want to make sure they last. These actually, we found these art alternatives are very good for that. I don't like to buy Michael's brand canvases anymore, the Artist Loft, because they warp all the time. I've had them come apart and I've been really, really unhappy with them. So these art alternatives are actually a little more expensive than those, but they hold up so much better. They also have the tapered stretcher bar in there, so you really don't get too much of that. If you push on it too much, you don't see too much of the line come up. Now, generally what I do is, since it's oil paint, I will gesso this first with an acrylic gesso just to get a little bit of the texture off. I like a finer texture, but then I'll go over it with an oil ground. So this is an oil ground. The reason I use an oil ground is so that I can wipe back as much as I can to this white where I need it. If I use an acrylic gesso, I can't really wipe the oil paint off very much and get back to that white. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to fight dark areas where I'm trying to build up light. So I'm going to show you real quick how I do this. Okay, so if you go to the palette, if you want to go to that and see what I'm doing there, I'm taking some raw umber. I'll put that right in the middle there. I'm going to take some burnt sienna. Okay, so a little mixture there. Okay. And then I'm going to take some of my thinner. And whatever you use, if you use Gamsol, that's fine. Or there's some new one on the market I just saw the other day at Jerry's. A little bit of that, and just kind of slowly mix this in until I get kind of an inky consistency. And it's messy, it's sloppy, but that's okay. All right, so about that consistency right there, if you can see that, kind of flows a little bit like that, right? Okay. So then I'll take a brush, kind of Princeton here. I usually don't use I don't use anything usually but Rosemary & Co. for my actual painting, but for setting up a canvas, I'll use whatever I have on hand. Okay, so now I'm back on the canvas again. If you want to switch back to there, and just throwing it on there. And now the reasons I tone the canvas, one of them is, if I have a piece that's a little darker, this one's got a few light spots in it, but it's got a lot of darkness around the outside. As I'm painting, I don't want any of the white of the canvas to show through. I've done a painting before when I forgot to do an imprimatura, and by the end of the painting, I had little specks of white dots everywhere, and I was going around with a fine brush, kind of toning them down and taking them out. It was really obnoxious. So I always do a tone. And this is going to give me some kind of atmosphere. It's going to give me I liken it to, think about a chef, right? So a chef would make a ragu, right? A red sauce. Let's say they made that red sauce 2 different ways, right? They make it the regular way. They got the, the San Marzano tomatoes. They've got some butter. They've got some garlic. But then they make it one different way where they add a little anchovy paste in the beginning. They kind of saute that up a little bit to give it a little, tang. And now you taste those two sauces next to each other, and you say, wow, this red sauce is really good, the one without the anchovies. And then you try the one with the anchovies and you go, wait a minute, this one's better. I don't know why it's better, but it's better. That's kind of the reason I tone the canvas, because if you have this underlying temperature, in this case, it's a warmer temperature. Well, everything's relative, but kind of a warmish temperature. As I paint on top of it, I may not see this color, I may not see this temperature, but I'm going to feel it. So as a viewer, I'm going to feel that temperature. I'm going to feel the warmth to it. So that's why I like to do this. This is a little harder to do with acrylics, unless you're doing, I think, open acrylics will stay open a little longer, or if you use a retarder that slows it down, slows the drying process down. Okay, so that's enough of that. Pretty easy. I'll knock over my camera over here. All right, so now I'm going to take a cleaner cloth than that one, and I use Viva cloth towels, paper towels. I really like these things. I like them better than the blue shop rags, actually. They don't seem to shed at all. Now I'm just going to take it down. I'm going to take all this extra off, but not all of it, just enough. Just enough. So I'm not fighting with all this paint. Now you'll notice on the end here, and if you can see that, yeah, you can actually right here, this darker spot, that's a spot that I missed with the oil ground. So that's a good thing to show you here. So there's no oil ground on that spot right there. So I can't wipe back more than that. Whereas the oil ground, I can wipe back to a lighter tone. And I'm missing spots along the bottom here too, you can see them. Okay, so from there, my imprimatur is on. Now what I want to do is take my cloth. I'm going to go to a clean side on the cloth. I'm going to take some more of my thinner and dip my cloth in that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move you back over now. I'm going to show you the source material again here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in to the part that I'm working on. Right there. Okay, you can see that. There I am. I can see myself now. Okay, so these little pups here, I'm going to zoom in for you there by pulling it in. So I'm going to be working on this outline here. That's all I really care about right now. I don't care about anything else. So I'm going to start roughly about where I see this guy here, this little guy where his face is turned in. That's yesterday's. So I'm going to kind of pull into that. He goes into this little guy here. Right there. He's kind of sitting on there with his paws hanging off. That's kind of cute. See how that wipes back to the white almost there? I need a new cloth. These things go fast when you have a lot of paint coming off of them. A little more of the thinner. Okay, we're still following those lines. Right, so we're going down from him. We've got this other little cutie here. Head's right there-ish. Another head over here. And this little guy's up here. About in line with this. This is where the truck is, kind of a piece of wood is sticking out here. Right there. And then we've got that in there. And there, I might have actually pushed that a little bit farther. Looks like I'm a little bit off there. That's okay. So again, preliminary stuff. This is just roughing this whole thing in. And that one's sticking out here. Okay, get some more pause there. This is where the edge of about where the edge of the thing is. Now, what I'm looking at here on this tablet that I have, And I tend to use a tablet as opposed to a photograph. And the photograph is actually a little better to use. Obviously, life is the best, but you're not going to get 11 dogs to sit there for you. So don't think that's going to happen. But I tend to use a tablet because it's easier, it's quicker. I don't have to go to Staples every 5 minutes to get a print of something. And I've learned to adapt to the fact that it's brighter and it's a little harder to paint off of, but I've learned enough that I can adjust on here and just use this as a reference. Now, the other thing about this program that I have, this is a free program. If you ever need a grid, the program's called Grid. Double tap it and a grid comes up. You can change the grid to whatever you want. So here, if you need a little, adjustments on things, I don't know if you can see the grid there or not, but you can see the lines there, and I can easily just go up here and kind of measure out and see where things are if I need to. So if I see this line right here, right, that's about, I know that's probably about 7 inches in or so, and I can easily just go back down and just kind of say, okay, he's right about there, right? And then I don't have to worry too much about being way off. Being a little bit off is fine, but as long as you're pretty close, we're good. And that was definitely dry from yesterday, so I'm not getting any of that off. Okay, so now I'll step it back a little bit and you can see, right? So we've got this shape going down here. There's one dog here, another dog here, down, 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 back up to these guys. I might have to come in a little bit closer here. Yeah, probably right about here. But probably pushed in a little bit closer that way. Good. Okay, so that's how I started painting. And now I would normally take this now and let it sit. So this would sit for about a day. And I don't want to touch it because I'm not an Alprima painter. I paint wet on dry. I like to have a dry surface. However, I will explain something later about edges where I do need wet and wet. But other than that, this is how I start this. So any questions on this much so far?
Anybody?
Nothing? Okay, good. Then I must have talked a lot.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll take this one down. This one's got to sit now. Put that aside. I'll put the next one up. The next one has been gone through the imprimatura process, and that imprimatura on this one was quinacridone magenta, and you can see that in the undertones there. It's all magenta, and I did put kind of a basic background in. And yes, I made this easel because the ones on the market didn't do what I wanted them to do, which is go from really, really small paintings to really, really large paintings with ease. And so this one does. This was made out of an old bed frame. You
Oh
can
my
believe it.
God. Wow.
These knobs are the best things ever. There you go. See, nice and tight. Holds panels, holds canvases up to about 40 some odd inches. So pretty great. So dry. That's the way I like to paint. And this background is just kind of, you can see a little bit of the magenta coming through there. This is actually a little tacky there, not too bad. So what I did here was I started already by putting in the darks. And I always start with the darks. It doesn't mean I can't start with lights. It just means that I want to get a foundation going and get some thin darks in so that I can get a foundation for what's going to go on top of them. I'll find this little guy here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to bring this one closer. You might be able to see the source if I bring it closer here. There we go. Okay. So I chose the magenta because I saw the magenta in his snorsel over here. I like that kind of look. And I wanted that to come through kind of everywhere. In his eyes too, you can see it. Maybe not on the video, but there's a bit in the eyes there. So I don't have to worry too much about playing with that. So it's a little bit off. I can see looking at it again. I haven't looked at this in a day or so, but I can see there's some spots that I need to come in, but that's okay. That's where we put the paint over the edge and back over the edge and back and forth like that. So from here, I leave this dark the way it is for now. It's not super dark. I tend to go with a value range of around 3 to 7 to start painting. So some people might start with, their 10 and their 0 and work inward to make sure that everything is, as super bright and super dark as it can be. That's fine. I like to do it this way just because it's easier for me to kind of build the depth. in the painting. So that's really where it comes to the values come into play. So I'll start with something that's not, it's more of a compressed value range. It's not truly out there. And then as I look at it and kind of live with it, I go, oh, you know what, that can be a little darker. Oh, that can be a little bit lighter. And then I'll go over it again and go over it again and just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And I never truly go to the end range of values. The only way I would do that is if there's just like a black background, that's fine. I'll do that. I try to stay away from that these days as much as possible, but sometimes it's necessary. But I only use the top and the bottom of the range for occlusion shadow. So right where the light doesn't get in, and maybe a highlight in an eye. And that would be your, and even that one, I might even put a little cerulean blue or Indian yellow or something in it, depending on the light source. So here I'm going to go a little bit into this. We're going to play with this one. So and this is how I normally paint too, is I get bored very easily. So I'll paint for half an hour and go, you know what, I'm tired of this. I don't want to look at it anymore. I want it over there on my shelf. I don't want to see it for a week. And I'll just put it away. And that's how I get over, you know, creative blocks and stuff. I'll actually have, you know, 20, 30 paintings on hold. And then any particular day I go, you know what, I feel like doing, you know, apples today, whatever. Let's see if I got an apple or a fruit or something. I'll grab that and I'll do that. Or I'll just pass by it and I'll go, oh, that one needs some work, and I'll pull it out. So that way I'm kind of always painting and I'm not really in a funk. The only time I really get in a funk is after I finished a big painting. And then I'm like, I'm wasted. My brain is hurt. I need to sit down for a couple of days and not do anything. And even, you know, as artists, even when we're not creating art, we are creating because we're still seeing things out there in life, right? And we're still kind of thinking, oh, maybe I can do this, or, you know, I wonder how I can, you know, our subconscious is thinking, how can I paint this? How can I make this look right? So we're kind of always creating, so it's fine. So I try not to get too upset about it. So I would recommend the same thing. Don't get upset about it. It's going to come. It comes all the time. All right, so I'm going to clean my palette up. Questions at this point while I'm doing this? About materials, about anything?
Let's see. Somebody asks, Kathy Sachuk asks, what is the app for the grid?
I believe it is called Grid, actually. Let me just double check. Yeah, right on here, it's called Grid. It's a G with grid lines through it. And that was on iOS. I'm not sure if it's on Android or not. I haven't checked.
Okay.
But the nice thing about that too is you can also tap it once and it'll give you a little circle, and that shows you what color you're tapped. And obviously it's pixels and it's a screen, so take it with a grain of salt, right? But it gives you an idea of what might be there, you know, something you can play with. And I think you can do up to two, yeah, you can do up to 2 colors at once and then kind of move them around wherever you want. So it's kind of fun. But the other reason I like this app is if I open the camera app and I have my picture somewhere in my library, and then I walk away and come back and turn it back on again, I have to open my camera, I have to scroll through my pictures again. This will leave it open. So even if I shut this thing off and I come back into it, it's still there. And I don't have to waste time searching through my pictures. I got like hundreds of them on here and I don't want to be doing that. So that's what I like about this program too, is I can always have that available. All right, so this guy's got some short hair, right? And I don't want to worry. Again, I'm not playing with rigger brushes here. I'm playing with big brushes. And I'll tell you that I like Rosemary & Co brushes, and I found some really great new ones called the Bravuras. And if you are,
Mike, one more time.
Bravura. Bravura. I don't think you
Okay.
can see them. So bring it up there. If you can read that or not.
What's the first letter?
B.
Okay.
So Bravura. This is their new line, and this is a synthetic bristle brush, and they are fantastic, and they really hold a lot of paint. I'm a thin painter, so the reason I chose these is to give me a little more confidence in painting thicker, because I'm really, I paint thin all the time, and I've always wanted to paint I actually find these panels help me paint thicker as well. Not the canvases, I'm always going very thinly, and I don't like that about myself about that. So I got these. I'll try them out. I've done a horse with these, and what's nice about this is you don't have to worry about doing the fur. It does it automatically. It's just, you just boop, like that, and you can see little hairs and stuff. So again, don't worry about details. All I care about for these is form. We want form. We need a way to turn the form. He's got a lot of bulbous areas in the skin folds. And so we want to really focus on that. If you get to the detail stage, if you want to get to the detail stage, as you're painting, pick out certain spots that you would like to detail. Don't detail the whole thing. Pick out maybe here, right above the eye. There's some nice little transition spot. And this is really where your detail goes in. Nothing here. Even though this is blown out as a picture, you really don't want to detail this. In the darkness, you really don't want to detail. But this transition part, right where the terminator is, right where it goes from shadow to light, that's the part that's going to get the most detail usually. So you want to focus on those. So as you're painting, don't say, yeah, I gotta do all this. I'm overwhelmed. I have to. No, you don't have to. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to go at the end, go, oh yeah, that looks like a spot that'll be really nice to put a little detail in there. And just by putting a few of those spots of detail in there, the whole thing appears detailed. You want really the viewer to do the work. You don't want to spell everything out for them. You want to explain everything for them. I'm impressed by people who can do photorealism. I think a lot of us can do photorealism. I think a lot of us don't want to do photorealism. I think we don't want to spend that time with a rigger brush doing this thing like this. I actually am really impressed by looking at something like that, but I don't want to see it again. I see it once, I don't want to see it ever again because it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't allow me to ask questions. It doesn't ask questions of me. When I look at something from, Soroya, or if I look at something from Sargent, it asks me questions. And I have to make up my mind about things, and I can ask it questions. Is that a cat in the background or is it a vase? I don't know, but I make up my own story. So that's the way I'm trying to paint. I'm trying to get closer to that looseness. That's just my style. So you have your own style, but that's my thought on those kinds of things. So that's what I'm working toward on this sort of painting. All right. So anytime you're turning a form, I want you to think about having at least 3 values. Okay. So if you're turning a finger, you're going to have a value on this side, you're going to have a value on the front, you're going to have a value there. You're not going to see these obviously because they're not facing the viewer. So 1, 2, 3 at least. And then from there, maybe you can put a terminator or transition right between each one of those. That's fine too. But always 3. That's how you're going to turn a form. So always have 3 values. So I'm going to go ahead, and I always like to start with a bigger brush than necessary. This is definitely a bigger brush than necessary. This is a number 10. And so what I want to do, I want to start with the side of his head over here. Yeah, you can see that. So this is about a value of probably, well, like maybe a 5 or so, probably right in the middle. And in this case, I don't care about color that much. I want to get as close as I can, but I don't care. And the reason is, if I'm trying to match the color exactly every time I go over this, because I paint in layers. I do the prematura, I do the block in, I do a bunch of layers, modeling layers, and then I do the detail. But if I'm trying to match that every time, I'm gonna make myself nuts. The nice thing about doing something a little differently each layer is that the other layer below it shows through and gives you a little bit of interest, right? So if I'm off a little bit on this one, I put a little bit of blue in there or something like that, and then the next time I come by and I put maybe a little purple in it or something, those 2 things are going to mix optically, and that's what I want. I want something a little interesting. All right, so I'm in a dirty mix now. I call it dirty mixes because I'm just going to use my brush. I'm going to go right into the paint. I generally don't use my palette knife anymore. I used to use it for everything, but now I kind of dirty mix. I go right in. So I'm looking at this here, and I'm going to try to stay away from white as long as possible. The reason is I don't want white getting into any darks that I might put next to it. But then again, I paint wet over dry. If I have to put a white down, I'll wait until it dries before I go back in with some darker. So on this one, I'm going to start with if you want to switch to the palette, I'm going to start with the yellow ochre. Obviously, way too yellow. I know I have a little bit of magenta in there, but that's already coming through over here, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. I know that this is another thing you got to watch out for. This yellow ochre I know is opaque. It's not transparent. So actually, I'm even going to change that for you. So if I were to go over this right now with this, I would almost obliterate that pink. So if I use that is a natural yellow ochre, and that is a raw sienna. They're both semi-transparent. I'm going to go ahead with the yellow ochre. Pretty much the same color and value right there. But now this one's going to have a little more opacity to it. So I'm going to take that first. I like that one better. Let's wipe that away so I don't get confused. We'll just use that, not anymore. Don't ever put your brush in your mouth. Not a smart idea. Could be paint on it, could be, yep. If I drop dead after this, you'll know why. All right. Okay, so yellow ochre. I'm also seeing that it's a little bit more desaturated than I have here. So opposite on the color wheel is purple. And I'm actually going to go and dip in with just a little bit of that magenta. That's a really strong magenta. So I'm going to go back and get this again, put it to the side. And I'm seeing some blue. And also, here's the other thing. I'm going to put a cerulean blue. So this is what I call guest color. So I generally have, this is my, I'll give you a quick rundown. I'll backtrack a bit. My palette is not traditional. I do my palette as if my dad was a contractor. So I do my palette in hot and cold, right? Just like a faucets. So cool is on the right, warm is on the left. I don't get confused, right? I also try to keep it as much as I can value-wise, going darker to the outside and putting the white in the middle. Just the way I like to do it. But now what I'm doing is I'm putting a guest color in here. And before I start a painting, I generally don't put all these colors out. These are out because I have 3 different paintings I'm going through. I will pick generally 4 to 5 colors to start with based on what I'm looking at, and then invite guest colors in. And the reason I'm inviting cerulean blue in here is I want to put some blue into this mixture I just made, but I don't want to make it ultramarine because it's going to darken it more than this. That means I have to add white, and I try to stay away from that white as long as possible. So using a lighter pigment that doesn't have white in it, and this one does not have white in it. This is a PB35, so it's just cerulean blue. And if you do oil paint, watch out for that. Okay, so if you go to the store and you turn this over, read the back. Make sure any pigment that you have doesn't say PW on it, which means they added white. That means you already are going to have white in your painting, and now you're in trouble. So I always pick one up. It's got white in it, put it back down, unless it's titanium white, I put it back down. I grab one that doesn't. It's a little more expensive because you're paying for a pure pigment, but you're going to thank yourself later. And these things last forever, as you know, unless you're Van Gogh. And none of us are. Not yet. We're getting there. All right, so cerulean blue, that's going to be a lighter value, and that's going to allow me to dull this down just a little bit. Might give me a little bit of a green tone, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm not too worried about the color right now. I just want the value. Okay. I'm going to go just a touch more, actually it's right here. I'm going to go a little bit more of that. 70% of your painting should be done on your palette. See, that's thinly, that's me, thin. So now I'm just going to go ahead. I don't care about much here other than just getting a blocking going. And I can already see that this dark has to be pushed in a little bit, and that's fine. What I'm going to do is kind of just put this over here for now. Ugly, and that's fine. I don't mind ugly. Now I'm going to go with a little bit more magenta. I'm looking at this spot right here. Going to pop that in, right? Nothing too exciting. Wipe a little bit away. I don't want too much thick paint there. And then the darker areas, I like it to be a little thinner, because anytime you make paint too thick, it gets glossy, and that comes forward. And we don't want that forward. We want that back. Now, in the snorsal area here, that's fine because it's in front. But here, like between the paw and the rest of the animal, you don't want this to be thick and coming forward. Honestly, you can change that with varnish, right? You put a gloss or semi-gloss on it or whatever, and even everything out. But generally, just try to stay away from thickening your darks too much. And you can do that with medium too. If you use Gamsol, a mixture of half Gamsol and half linseed oil. Usually, you can get a nice little mixture for that purpose. All right, so I'm actually, since this is dry and I don't have any white in my brush, I'm not going to bother with rinsing this off. I'm actually going to mix this dark area here. My raw umber and my blue are both transparent. I'm going to try to kind of shape this back up again, push right into that paint that I just put there. And this is not going to look anything like a finished piece, obviously, because we're layering. Everything's gonna be layers, and it's gonna come into focus as we play with it. And obviously it's gonna take a lot longer than we have today, but now I'm jumping around. So I don't know if you know Everett Raymond Kinsler. Unfortunately passed a few years ago. I wish I had met him. I did meet and study with his protege, Michael Shane Neal. So he was giving us a lot of stories about Everett. And he said, if you got a color on your brush and you can use it somewhere else in your painting, do it. Don't wash it off. Just skip around if you want. And one of the other funny story too, because I was in, some of you may have gone to Easton to Peggy Kinsler's estate. She gave us a tour of the inside of the house. There were tons of paintings in there, and one of the paintings was over the fireplace, I believe. And one of Kinsler's mottos was anything to get it done, anything to make it work. You go up to this painting and you can look at the rocks in the stream and you can see track marks, almost like a worm crawled through it. That's actually from what Michael Shane Neal told us was one of his times that he did what he needed to get it done. He was having a struggle getting a shine on these rocks, these things to sheen, the sheen to come out over and over. Couldn't get it. He went to Hobby Lobby. He got a glitter pen, $1 glitter pen, and just drew it in, and it worked. Now the glitter has since fallen off, but at the time he did what it needed to get it done. So do what you need to get it done. If you need to use your elbow to put it on with your elbow. All right, so my darks, kind of happy with those. Got a little under the paw here. I'm going to stick with that too. Just kind of pop that in, and it's just general. Doesn't have to be crazy. The other thing too is you don't always have to put something on. You can always take something off, right? You don't have to just be putting paint on all the time. It also matters what you take off. So eliminate things if you have to. I'm gonna go over this paw over here, pop a little bit of that in. Again, bigger brush than you need, but that's fine because you can move the oil paint around. And then we'll kind of just pull that right out because it's a low angle and he's sitting right there. There we go. Okay, good. So we're getting a little closer. Now, I'm going to give myself a color note. This is what I would do sometimes. I'm kind of speeding ahead on these, but I want to show you as much as I possibly can. I'm going to clean my brush now. I'm actually going to go to a different brush. I'm going to go to, I'm going into the light areas now, and I'm going to use a synthetic brush by Rosemary & Co. This is an Ivory series. You can see that. So these are this is an Ivory curved flat. So I really like using flat brushes mostly, but I don't like the corners that they usually give you. But this one, actually, they curved the corner on. So it's kind of like a filbert, kind of like a flat. So I like these very much. And these are a little bit longer as well. But what I want to do is give myself a color note, right? So I want to give myself something to bounce off of. So I see that I know in this photograph that this white on top of the animal is overblown. I know that. And I have to keep that in mind. The other thing is I made the background darker than what I have here. So if I put pure white here or something close to pure white, that's going to blow your eyes out. We don't want that. So I want to kind of gradually build away from this value, maybe come up 1 or 2 levels, and then look at it and see what it does for me. So I'm going to dirty mix again. Go ahead with the white. Got a little bit of my raw umber in there. Go ahead with my white. I'm going to put a little cerulean blue in there because I'm assuming this is an inside shot. Looks like a rug. Okay, so I want to make sure that we've got some kind of cool light coming in there. And I'm going to kind of knock that blue value down a little bit with the raw umber. And I mean a little bit of raw umber. Okay, now I'm just going to come in here and just kind of find some areas there, across there. Always go back into the paint. Even if you're a thin painter like me, go back into the paint, get some more. And now here's where I'm going to explain about this edge. So if I did this right now and left that there, if this was my final layer and left that there, that would create a hard edge. And that's going to draw your eye up there. I don't want that. So in order to get that to be a softer edge, I need to mix it with the paint that's next to it. So this would mean that I have to recreate this background color that's dry and paint back over the top of that. So I'll do that right now so you see that. So I'm actually going to paint into this area here. You can see that. Okay, make it kind of gnarly here so you can actually see it on the video. Right. Is that okay? Can everybody see that?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. So there we go. I'll put a little bit of color in here so I can give myself something to look at later. There we go. All right, so I'm not gonna wash my brush. I'm gonna go right back in here. And don't remember how I mix this, but I don't really care. I'm just gonna fake it. Fake it till you make it. That's what they say. Keep faking it. All right, so that's blue. It's got a little touch of, I'm gonna go into the raw umber there. I'm using my raw umber as a dark yellow. Right. You might need to put a little bit of that. Use some of that. Might put some of that in there. Okay. Not too bad. It's close. A little lighter than what I have up there. So back in that blue. Dirty mix. Dirty mix. Dirty mix. Dirty mix. Okay. What that looks like. A little dark and a little too brown. So I'll pop in the cerulean blue now. I try not to mix more than 4 colors in one go. I don't like to have more pigments playing with each other. I like to have as pure to the original pigments as possible. So I try to not do that. Okay, a little green. Go back to that. Back to that. And again, this is where you're going to spend most of your time. This is the painting here. I actually don't call it painting anymore. I call it fixing and mixing because it's pretty much all you do the whole time. It's like, oh, that's messed up. I gotta fix that. Back to mixing. Okay, that's closer. Not perfect, but that's okay. So now here's where I want to go. I'll try to do it up here so you can see. I want to go right over the top of this like this. And you'll see it makes a hard edge again. But if I take some of my other color there, which was basically white, so I'm just going to add the white to it, make a transition color, and go right between the two, right over that line. Softens it up a bit. Now it's probably hard to see with the glare here. So what I do is I'll take a little fan brush, soft fan brush, just kind of hit it down just like that. So now that kind of blurs it off into the background. Now this is with a big brush. As I get more detailed or more into the final layer, I'll actually do that again, just with a smaller brush, and it'll really blur that out even more. So I'm going to go ahead, kind of. The other thing you don't want is, I see this a lot in, I don't want to say it's bad. I don't like the look of it. Is I'll see a halo. Someone will be carving out. Oh, like I messed up this ear over here. I have to carve that out, and then you can actually see that in the final painting that they carved it. And I'm guilty of it. I've got a couple paintings over there where I did that, but I try not to do that. I try to actually get in there and blend those, what I call halos, out of there, because I don't want to see them. I don't like the look of that. Kind of takes me out of the painting a little bit. So, just little things to be mindful of. If you don't like it, change it. If it's not your style, not your style. Make it different. Okay, that's not bad. You got a little bit there. Okay, you can use your finger. A good way to blur. I don't want to blend. I want to blur, right? Or soften. Now you can see how that came together a little bit, right? So it's not a hard edge anymore. It's not in my face anymore. It's not front and center anymore. It pushed it back, and by doing that, this, as I work on it, is going to come forward. That's what I want. Because this is the important part right in here. Eyes, always eyes, eyes, mouth, nose. That's the direction, the order for me. Eyes, mouth, nose. As Sargent said, there's a portrait is a painting where there's something wrong with the mouth. We're going to focus on those. Make sure to get all those shapes correct. Okay, so I put that color note on there, right? But that's not bulbous. It's not rounded, right? So what did we say about that? We wanted to have at least 3 values, right? So I need to darken that just a touch, and it's really not that much. And this might actually have to be a little lighter later on. So this is almost going to stay where it is. I might hit it one more time to pull a little bit more of that magenta out of there. But right now I have to darken it. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take some of my background color that I just made. add it to that white. Hit it right in there. It might be hard to see on the video, but that's going to give me a rounded feeling. That. Now I'm going to go in my white, a little bit of cerulean blue, a lot more white. I'm going to have to get some more out of there. I'm going to hit this area where I think the light is coming down. It's coming down in this direction here. So I want to make sure I get that right. And don't play with it too much. So overworking a painting is a common thing. I still do it sometimes. And overworking the painting doesn't mean that you worked on it for too long. It doesn't mean, I mean, Da Vinci carried around the Mona Lisa for years and it doesn't look overworked. And the reason is it's not that overworking means the time you've spent on it. Overworking is this. I put a color down and I go, that's overworking. So what Kinzer said also is he would rather see a confident stroke that is incorrect rather than a whole bunch of little strokes that are correct, because they're just going to blur together, blend together, and they're going to look ugly and muted. And especially with alla prima painters, they learn first off that if they do that, they're going to just make mud. It's just going to go gray. So if you're painting alla prima, it's actually better to start with very vibrant, saturated, chromatic colors, because as you paint, they're going to start dulling themselves out of it. With this method, with my wet over dry, I don't really have to worry about that too much, but I do have to worry about the overworking. So I try not to overwork those too much. I tend to overwork a little more on canvases than I do on panels. The panels, it's a lot easier just to slide across on these. I like them. And this was prepared. This was a piece of hardboard. So if you've seen ampersands, they have the gesso boards. They also sell hardboard, which is basically the gesso board without any, without it being prepared. So what I do is I put 2 coats of GAC 100 on them, which is by Gamblin, which is an adhesive. And then I put 2 coats of oil ground over the top of that. And so then I get this surface, and I really like this surface a lot. So it's very similar to the gesso board, but cheaper because Jerry's had a sale on hardboards. Okay. All right, so time, what do we got on time? We got about 5 o'clock here. All right, so I want to move on from this one. And we'll get the next one set up, which is actually a little farther along. Okay, and so that's basically how you start the block in. So in Prematura, block in, get your big shapes, everything's got to be right. So you don't actually have to be good at drawing. It helps, of course, but you don't have to be good at drawing to paint. You have to be good at seeing proportions, at seeing angles, and that sort of thing, right? So if I start like this, I can come back to this any day and go, oh, that angle's way off, and fix it without a problem. Whereas I'll show you this one. This was one I did a while ago, just because the new Wonder Woman movie ticked me off. It was so bad. The first one was amazing. So I had completed her head. Her face was complete, but it was a ½ inch over. And that's when my drawing wasn't right. And I told myself I have to do that first, because this took another 4 hours to get this pushed back over here. So always get your proportions and your angles and all of that right first. The big stuff first. Just, I can't stress that enough. Big stuff first. Big stuff first. Because if that doesn't work, think about it, right? You walk into a gallery and you see a painting way across the gallery and you go, wow, that looks amazing. You can't see eyes. You can't see details. What are you seeing? You're seeing composition. You're seeing shapes and values. You're seeing how they bounce off each other in a very basic way. And it's only until you get up close that you go, oh, wow, that's really cool stuff. But you back away and you go, it still holds together. So big stuff first, always big stuff. So spend most of your time on that big stuff, getting it right, shaping things, carving things, turn it upside down. That's been one of the greatest ways for me to paint, is upside down, because then I don't name things. So you're not painting an eye, you're not painting a nose, you're painting shapes and values, and that's it. Turn it sideways, do it sideways, and then oh, that angle's there. I totally messed that up. So do that. Use a proportional divider. Those are always good too. I don't know where mine is. Otherwise, I'd show you that. All right. We'll get this one off of here and we'll go on to the next. I'm going to drop this down a little bit. So easy. I'm going to market these things. You see that? Yeah. Okay. All right, there you go. So this one's on canvas. This is another art alternatives canvas. Okay, drop that there. And these lock in, which is nice. Okay, now I gotta find her on here. So this is a little bit into the first modeling stage. All right. So I'll bring it closer again. So now I have to change my palette. No more magenta. So I won't be using the magenta that I have on here. Okay, so now I'm back into an area where we've got some burnt siennas in here. Actually, that's a little tacky still. Burnt siennas in there. I'm gonna work on this one. Of course, lots of grays and a little bit of cerulean blue in there. There won't be any. Yeah, there won't be any CAD. I don't even know why I have CAD red on there. I got CAD red on there. I'm not using it. But there will be some alizarin in here, and I'm probably going to echo that. There's a little bit of alizarin in this bridal. I would rather kind of steer it toward the color of her hair. This is where I would kind of tie these two together. So we're going to focus on eyes for a second, and not eyes. I'm not talking about eyes. It's an eye. No, it's not. Yes, it is. All right. So anytime you're painting an eye, don't start with the pupil. Don't start with any lines or anything like that, especially on a human being. Start with the socket, because that's going to be easier. So if you're looking at me right now, I got the good light over here. So if you're painting me, you want to paint this very, very simply, that. And then as you're painting everything else, you can say, oh yeah, that socket looks a little bit off. So I got to adjust that. And it's easy to adjust because you just made a shape. That's all you did. Once that's settled, then you can work inward. If you put a pupil somewhere and you start making this beautiful iris and all this kind of thing, and then you paint everything and you go, oh, that's way off. It's wonky. It looks weird. Then you're in trouble. So by doing it big first and then going small, you're going to save yourself a lot of time. The other thing about painting an eye is in an eye socket is you want to make it bigger. Anytime you paint an eye, if you start at the actual size that it's supposed to be, it's going to be smaller by the time you're done with the painting, because you start overlapping it and making it smaller and smaller. So actually make it a little bigger than you think it needs to be. So start with that. All right. One of the tricks I like to use, and I got this from Shane in a course I took from him last year, was when you're mixing. So I tend not to use black on my palette. I like to mix my blacks because I can go between the cool and the warm of. And now I use raw umber. I stopped using burnt umber a while ago. I just don't like it anymore. Maybe I'll like it another day, but I like the raw umber and the ultramarine blue to mix my black. If I want a little more warm, I go toward the raw. If I like it a more cool, I'll go toward the blue. But that's why I like to do that, because I can mix my own. But what Shane said is, if you want to make it feel a little more realistic, add a touch of alizarin crimson. So in this case, it's actually good because this blue and this brown actually make a very dark green. I mean, it's not, you can't really see the green unless you really spread it out, but so this will help, since red is opposite color wheel. Add a little bit of alizarin crimson. That's going to give us something a little more realistic. So I'm going to step back here behind the camera because I'm going to need to extend my brush and see from way back here. You don't really want to be painting from here. This is drawing. That's not painting. This is painting here. So this is how I hold my brush most of the time. I like these long handle brushes. Sometimes I'll go up here and do something like that, but keep it loose. This is a conductor's baton, and you want to paint, not draw. So I'll start back here, and I kind of am feeling it out. And you paint it, in the air before you even hit it, right? So I'm feeling like this one's a little higher than it should be. So I'm going to kind of push this here. And again, I don't have much of a socket here just because it's a horse and the lighting is almost front on. But I want to make it a little bit bigger than it's supposed to be, first of all. It's definitely bigger than it's supposed to be, and that's fine. I don't mind that. It's going to look ugly for a little while. The other thing I want to do here is a little bit of cleaning up the edges. I don't want any harsh edges in case I don't come back to this in time. I don't want any harsh edges sitting there waiting for me and, making fun of me for being an idiot. So I'll do that. This is going to come down a little bit here, across the top. This is all basic play, is all it is. It's going to come together eventually, but it's just a matter of getting the big stuff in first. So I'm a little happier with that shape there. Yeah, I'm happier with that shape. Now it's on my brush. I don't mind there's a little wow, I'm going to try some vowels this time. I don't mind that there's alizarin crimson in this. So I'm gonna actually go in here and kind of hit this nostril while I'm there. With a little extra darkness, probably right there. Clean that up a touch. I'm seeing a bit down here, and that's my angle's way off on this, but that's okay. I can actually come back with her arm later and shape that out a little better. But right here, put that darkness in there. And you can use it other places too, like just carving out this. Yeah, this is gonna need a little bit of work too, but that's okay. It's what we do. Let's keep working on it until it comes out. So my thing is always get something on the canvas, right? Don't stand there and stare at a blank canvas because you can't fix something that's not there. So even if you put a big smiley face on there, do it. It gets your paint on the canvas. It gets you moving. It gets you looking at something and going, wow, that's way off. And then you can actually fix it. So if you're staring at a blank canvas, just take whatever color you want, just slap it on there and then fix it. All right, so another spot might go a little cooler though. I'll stick with the same brush here, is up near the mane over here. I'm actually going to drag this shape. I'm looking at this shape right here. It's right. So I'm not looking at individual hairs. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, and the squiggly shape over here, 4. And then because I like to do things in odd numbers when painting, not even numbers, there's a 5th one right there at the top of the ear. So when I'm looking at this, I'll clump them together. I'll go, okay, I got 5 clumps, and I want to make sure that I like the spacing of these. If these were evenly spaced, I would change that. So just because it's in your source photo or in life doesn't mean you have to paint it, right? So if you see 4 evenly spaced flowers in nature, please don't paint it like that. You're going to hurt my brain, right? So I don't want to see that. I would like to see 3 and possibly spaced out in, you know, the golden ratio. So 1 to 1.618, and then maybe, you know, the 2 next to each other, something like that. That's what I'd like to see. So, and that's what most people would like to see, even though they don't know that. It's just kind of built into us that we want to see that. So even if nature puts it out there evenly like that, it just hurts the brain. So, you know, use your artistic license at that point and make it look pretty. So here I like the way the space. I got a little bit of a, you know, cone in there. I got a nice long cone there. Got a medium-sized cone over here. And these are almost spaced out in the golden ratio. I'm looking at them right now. This is like 1.618 here. And this is like 1 here. So that's actually kind of cool. So it's already there. I don't need to do anything with it. I'm just going to pop that straight in like that. Broken color, that's fine. I like broken color. I'm probably going to get a squiggly guy over here. I like that. That's neat. I'll put that in. Something basic for now. It doesn't have to be crazy. And one down here. Start that one again. Good. I'm going to go a little bit darker now. I'm going back into the, again, even in the hair, even in the mane, I'm thinking about values. I'm thinking about value shifts. I'm thinking about, now you're not going to really think about temperature shift here, but you can think about value shift. I just finished a portrait recently of some people. It was an old picture, and I usually don't take these portraits when they're on really old, you know, celluloid and all that, but it was a friend, so I wanted to do it. And it was a flash from the front, which makes it really impossible to get any good form with light and shadow. So what I had to do was resort to temperature play. So I had to go between, so if you know from its, so pretend this is a human cheek, right? I would go from a cool light to a little bit warmer transition, back to cool, back to warm, back. So that way I could get the form without the light and shadow. All right, so that's just a little play right up there. I'm going to leave it and then probably touch that down later. After it gets dry, I'll probably play with it again. But this is how I go about this, is I just go back and forth, find the dark areas, find the light areas. Questions, I'm talking an awful lot because that's what I do. So if you got questions, you can shut me up. I'm happy to answer them as I go here.
Now, thank you for
Nada?
talking while you're painting. Thank you for explaining what you're doing.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we can
You're
follow
welcome.
along.
You're welcome.
Any questions out there? We're riveted. So we
Yeah,
don't need
maybe
to
I'm
ask questions.
explaining too much. That's what it is. I'm explaining too much. I'll
No,
just shut
you're
up
not.
and paint.
You're doing a
No.
great job. It's good.
I often find that it's very, I'll watch some people paint, like, there's a guy, a Russian guy, Vladimir Pologov, and I'll watch him paint and watch him paint and watch, he never says anything. I can't learn that way. I need like, even though I'm a visual learner, when it comes to painting, I'm not. Like, I'd rather sit there and listen to somebody talk, principles about it, and then I learn more, and then I can put it into practice. Is there any part of this that you want to see me work on next? I mean, because I'm just kind of skipping around and showing you some tidbits and tricks and that kind of thing, but is there anything you want me to work on?
Anybody? Let's say from Laura, how long do you wait for a dried? Uh-oh, it says underpants.
Well, I just put them in the
How
dryer.
long do you wait for a dried underpainting, I guess?
It depends. So if you're using a thinner like Gamsol, now I use water soluble oils, so I use a water soluble thinner as well, but it acts the same. The only thing about the water, so a lot of people have questions about the water solubles with me, and I'm happy to answer them because I've been using them for a while and I love them. I used to use standard oil paints and I hated the turpentine. I didn't know they had odorless mineral spirits, so I went to the water soluble. But the water soluble, the only difference between water soluble oils and standard oils is they changed one molecule in the linseed oil, so it bonds to water. That's it. The problem you have to watch out for is making sure that you don't have water in your brush, because it will delaminate the pigment somehow. So you really have to wash these things out and make sure you get the ferrule clean and dry before you go back into the paint. And you'll learn that quickly. But it's okay. It works. It works just like regular oil. The other thing you have to watch out for is don't get student grade. You can get student grade to start, like Winsor & Newton in these paints is considered student grade because that's filler in it. I use that to start my paintings, like the old masters did, and then they would build up with more expensive paintings because those are the paints. That's what you'd see on top. So then I go to the Cobras after that, which is by Royal Talons. They also make Rembrandt, and then I go to Holbein after that. That's a Japanese company, and they are buttery smooth and loaded with pigment. Like, they are loaded. So I really like those. I also have some Michael Hardings over here, but they're these are actual. They're not water soluble. And funny story about that, I bought them from Michael Harding himself at the portrait convention, and they have a whole room for Rosemary Co. and Raymar and all these other brands, and they're like 40% off of everything because they don't have to go to the store. So I bought 5 paints. They were $69. I got them home. It was about 3 days later, and Michael Harding's wife calls me and goes, I charged your card, but I'm sorry, I didn't add a decimal point. So my $69 became a $6,900 purchase for 5 paints on my credit card.
Oh my gosh.
And there was a $200 international transaction fee because they're based in the UK. And she said, don't worry, we turned it around. It'll be back on your card in no time. And in the meantime, you enjoy your free paint. So I've got 5 tubes of free Michael Harding over here.
Oh, wow. Can I read? Let me correct some of these questions then. So we had the silly, that was a little typo there. So Laura wants to know, how long do you wait for a dried painting? How long do you wait for it to be dry?
Yeah, for the underpainting, it doesn't take, so yeah, I went on a big tangent there. I told you I talk a lot. So with mineral spirits like Gamsol or even this thinner that I have, the underpainting will be dry probably in a few hours, and depending on the weather in your room. So right now in here, this room is warm in the house. If it's cool in the house, it's going to take longer. As far as a whole like layer goes, like a modeling layer, that would depend on the actual paint that I've used. So if I'm using white, it's going to take longer. If I'm using burnt umber and ultramarine blue, it'll be dry within the day. So it all depends on what you, and if you add some linseed oil to it, that kind of dries, helps it dry a little faster too. So it depends on the medium you put on there, it depends on which paint you're using. Also between brands too, some brands may dry quicker than others. So you'll get your brands and the paints and whatever you are using down, and you'll start figuring out how long things take. So this one is actually this is a little tacky here still. This has a little bit of, I think I have a little phthalo blue in here. So that's probably why it's still, the phthalo blue is just, that'll ruin your life. You get that on everything. And then it just doesn't dry.
Whoops. I'm sorry. There's another question. Marianne asks, do you use any medium while painting? So with the water, what is this again? Water-based oil? How do you explain this then?
Yeah, so water-based oil. So this is the water-based thinner, basically Gamsol. And then I have a water-based painting medium, basically linseed oil.
Oh,
And again, you just change one molecule in it so that it bonds to water, but other than that, it's the same stuff. So I always like to do, because I do wet over dry, I have to worry about thick over thin. I have to worry about fat over lean. Well, not thick over thin. Alla Prima painters have to worry about thick over thin so that they don't take paint up. Wet over dry, I have to worry about fat over lean. So fat over lean is because if I put a big fat layer of paint down and it dries, you know it doesn't cure for 6 months to a year. If I put a thin layer of paint over the top of that, that layer is going to dry quicker than the bottom layer, which means cracking is going to happen on that top layer. So generally the way I will paint, since I have to do so many layers, is I start with that thinner layer that I showed you, the Imprimatura, and then I paint with a little bit less of that, and then I'll go into just straight paint. And then near the end, I will use the painting medium or the linseed oil to thicken it, to fatten it up, so that I make sure that those top layers are fatter. And I'll try to use more paint too as well. So yeah, always building thin to thick, or lean to fat. Yep.
okay, great. We've got some more questions. Let's see. And why wet on dry?
Well, that comes from me being a personal trainer, and I have maybe a half an hour here, 15 minutes there. Maybe at night I'll have 2 hours to actually get into something. So I really don't have time to sit there for 6-7 hours straight. I can't do that. I also like, since I'm a thin painter, I can't paint wet on wet. I haven't learned how to do that yet. I will eventually take some classes in Alla Prima, but for now, this is how I'm doing it. So I would actually be pulling paint off of the canvas, and even when it gets tacky, I try not to paint on it, because it'll start moving it around in a way I don't like, and pulling my brush. And so mostly because of my schedule, I paint wet
Okay.
over dry.
So along with that, you don't paint a lot of plein air then?
No, I've done a few. They never come out good because I suck at it, but that's fine. I'll get better at it someday. But
Oh.
yeah, I've done a few just to get out there, and try to figure out. I have painted under sun before. They always come out dark, obviously, and I painted in shade. I prefer that one. They come out better. But one of my pet peeves is trees. I am not good at trees. I hate painting trees. Someday, so next year, I'm hoping to take from Mark Boges in Vermont. He's a master plein air painter. And I like his style of trees. So I'm hoping to take from him. But I would rather paint something with eyes or fruit or something like that. Yeah. I did see something pop up about soap and water when I was looking at the screen. But another one?
Let's see. Yeah. Is cleanup done with soap and water with the water soluble paints down the
It is.
kitchen sink drain? Okay.
Drain okay. Yeah. That's another reason I like it. I don't have to go to the hazardous waste place. So I have, you can
And
probably
that
see
was
them out.
Dawn. Dawn asked you that, Charlotte.
Oh, yeah. And there's even Dawn in here. So
Huh?
I have these little glass things from Michael's. They've got a little grate at the bottom of them, and one has water and dish soap, and the other one is just plain water. So when I clean it, I'll do it in the water and dish soap first, and then go into the cleaner water. And it's not just dirty now, and then I'll wipe it out on the paper towel. But if I don't, and you'll come back, it'll be a stiff brush, just like standard oil paint. It's just gums it up, and then you dip it in the soap and water again, and it works. So one of the best ways I like to clean is, if I'm going away for a while and I want my brushes clean, I'll put the dish soap here and do that under running water, and I'll get really deep in there and get it all cleaned out, and then you can reshape it from there.
Here's another question from Sana. What is the oil base that you talked about, and how do you make it or put it down?
The oil
That's what the
base?
question says, what is the quote unquote oil base?
You mean the linseed oil?
Perhaps. Is Sana, I hope that's what you mean.
So one of them I have, I'll show you while she's clarifying, is so this is the Cobra water mixable linseed oil, and this is the Holbein water mixable linseed oil. So I haven't tried this one yet. It looks actually a little more viscous, but it's linseed oil, same thing. It's just that one molecule has changed.
Okay. And then Beverly would like to know why water soluble oil versus regular oil.
Oh, that's because of the I didn't know there was odorless mineral spirits. And when I was a teenager, I used to paint with Bob Ross and William Alexander in my basement, and the turpentine was getting to me. And so one of my friends, as I was painting with her in acrylic, she's like, you should switch back to oils. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll go get turpentine. And then I was like, ooh, they have Gamsol. Oh wait, ooh, they have water soluble. So I tried those first, and then I just kind of stuck with them. And I like the fact that I can just, I don't have to bring chemicals with me. I can, if I'm going on a trip or something like that, I get water right out of the faucet. Bring a little thing of dish soap and
So much
I'm
easier.
good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And,
Santa clarified her question a little bit about the
Mhm.
oil base. She's asking about, so the gesso on the base that you're using. She's asking, what is the oil base that you talked about? How do you make it or put it down like gesso?
Okay, so I don't make it. I wish I had time to make it because I would make my own. I would make my own paint too. But I start with, that's from Jerry's Artorama. That's an acrylic gesso. And I'll put that down with I'll take a little palette knife. I'll put it on first I sand down the blank canvas just to get the nubbies off. And then I'll put that down with a credit card. So some people brush it on. I like doing the credit card method. I get it real smooth like that. And then I do a couple of passes and just kind of pull it toward the edges and make sure everything is, no edges or, cliffs, you call them, that you would see if the gallery light came down on it. That dries for a couple of days. And then I put Gamblin oil ground. There you go, Gamblin oil ground on that. And this one takes a week to cure. So you don't want to paint on this for 5 to 7 days.
Wow.
And I'll put this on also with a credit card. Yeah, this one's a little messier, obviously, to clean. And when I put this down, this is a little thick, so I actually mix a little Gamsol into this. I do put Gamsol on this and mix it up, because this is actually, this is not water soluble. So that's how I make those. And I'll show you. This is a hardboard. So this is one of the hardboards that I had. This is from Jerry's. It was on sale, so I was like, oh, I'll get that, and I prepared it with. You can kind of see. Probably can kind of see a little bit of the hardboard showing through, but this is two coats of GAC, which is the Gamblin, Golden, not Gamblin, Golden base. This is like an adhesive, and that protects it from the oils in the ground. And then I'll put the ground on top of that, 2 coats of that. So one coat will go on, I'll wait till it's dry, which is about a day or so, hit it with another one, and then wait 5 to 7 days to paint on it.
Okay. I have a question. Is ground used with oil-based oils, water-based oils, I mean, or is it also, you use it also with oil?
Yeah, I
Regular
do with water-based as well. Yeah, it's mostly preparing the canvas to accept the paint.
Okay.
So I like to put it on there because of what I showed you in the beginning, where I can wipe down to the lighter color, and it gives it so. Acrylic fall over. Acrylic gesso is absorbent. So as you're painting on it, your oils are sinking in, but the oil is not as much. So it gives you a smoother kind of experience when you're painting on it. So that's why I like that. And once I did that, I never went back to acrylic gesso only. Yeah, okay. It's kind of spoiled. It takes more work, but sometimes you can just go in the store and find. Most of the stuff in Jerry's is acrylic based gesso on the canvas, but there are some that have, the more expensive ones have the oil base already on them. So you can just work on those if you wanted to.
Any more questions out there on this segment? So let me just give you a heads up. It's 5:22. So, oh wait.
The next step's on the eye. I saw that one.
What did Marion say? Yeah, will we have time to see the next steps on the eye?
So I can show you the outside of it. I can't touch this right now because that's wet. So I wouldn't be touching that right now. But what I would want is I want this. So I'll work on the outside a little bit here so you can see them kind of come together. The inside would just be a matter of getting that reflection right, and it doesn't have to be this reflection that's here. I'm looking at it right now. I see a photographer actually in the reflection. I wouldn't put that person in there. I'd put a little bit of the the fleshy part, the pinky fleshy part in there. And I would try to, as best I could, round the eye. Even though it's almost solid black in this picture, I would actually focus on changing those values so that I can see it spherically. And some of that comes from the reflection. Reflection will actually help the mind go, oh, okay, that's an eye, that's a bulbous eye. right, so I'll keep talking, but we can work a little bit on that. I'm going to use another Bravura brush. This is a little smaller one. This is that's rubbed off. I think it's a 6. So it's the same line as I was using before, this bigger one. Now we got to get a little closer. So again, shapes, right? So now I'm looking at this. This here, right, is just this one rectangle. Maybe a transition here, rectangle here, a little swoop under there. So I want to go with this value here, and this is going to have no white in it. I don't want to touch the white. I don't want to touch the eyelashes right now. I don't want to touch the reflection right now. I still want to work on this big shape here. So I'm going to go into my cerulean blue. Remember, because that's a lighter blue. I don't have any white in it. I'm going to bring the umber into that. That's the raw umber. Now it's a little bit on the warm side. Add a little bit more cerulean blue. That's not too bad. And right from here, I just want to make that shape. That's all I want to do. So when I teach my students, the beginning students anyway, I teach them that it's not a gift. Being able to paint well is not a gift. It's not something that I'm going to go a little bit darker here. It's not something that you have to be born with. It's not a talent. I teach them that there are 4 skills that they have to learn in order to paint effectively. And those 4 skills are this. 1 is patience. That one they have to teach themselves. And the other 3 are ones that I can teach them, which is learning how to see shapes and values, not looking at a dog, not looking at a horse, looking at shapes and values, how to mix paint, and how to make a shape with a brush. That's it. That's all you need. And once you learn values and how edges go together and how, I mean, honestly, yeah, I know it's a lot of stuff, and I make it sound simple, but it actually is simple. So once you learn all these tidbits along the way, and you pick up new things every day, once you learn it all, you're like, oh yeah, what was I worried about before? It's easy. It's just, it's a matter of mastering it. That's why I was saying before, it's hard to master. It's just easy to learn. Anyone can pick up a brush as long as you're able. So from here, I like this shape. So I wouldn't make this, when you're blocking in, try not to do too many swoops, try not to do too many circles. Try to make them more angular, because because once you put a curve in, you're married to that curve. You feel like, oh, I don't want to change that. I really like that curve. But if you put angles in, you're more inclined to change that, because you got to change it anyway. You got to change it to a smoothed out curve. So here for the under eye, I'm looking at angle, 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 right? And then this little hit there going that way. So see that one. I'm going to probably put that one in first. So that angle, angle, angle there. And then the angle there. And then we go a little bit more paint in this one, because I gotta get a finer tip on this brush, because it kind of disappears a little bit. I'm gonna start with the disappeared part and kind of push in a little bit and open that brush up just a little bit there. Play with that a little bit, and then this little angle down here. Right, so that's that. Now under here, obviously too light. I got to move down, so I'm moving right into. This is what I like about this edge here is, again, fresh paint. You don't want to have a joint that is wet paint and dry paint, because it's just going to look amateurish. So you want to make sure you get the repaint any spots that are dry. In this case, I don't have to, because I'm going right into this area here. That's not good. That's not right. That's right. It's got a little magenta in it. Oh, I'm gonna put a little alizarin in there. Forget it. I'm not on the wrong palette here. There we go. A little alizarin. I'm gonna pop that into right there. And take your time too. It doesn't have to be fast. It's not a race. Art takes as long as it takes. I'm just kind of going lightly with the brush tip here. And I can go right back into that white. I'm going to clean off a little bit with the towel here. A little white. Still got a little bit of pigment on the brush, but that's fine. I don't want to go full white anyway. I'm just going to start down. I'll start here first. I'm getting away from the eye now, but this is what I do. I paint right in there. Come on. Thank you. And you got to talk to your paint too. Okay, now I'm looking here. I'm seeing a little bit of. Now I got white on the brush. Now I got to wash it. If you're going into a darker color and you got white in your brush, take that off of there. You do not want that mixing in. Keep your values separate. And also when you're painting a figure, even a human figure, if you have a like Rembrandt lighting on, right? You got the one on the side and dark on this side. The highlights on this side are usually darker than the darkest dark on the lighted side, if that makes sense. So always keep those separate. You don't want to take a highlight from this side of the face and put it on that side of the face because it's just gonna blow up. You're gonna go, whoa, that is way too bright, buddy. Okay, so I'm gonna go with a little bit of the browns here and the yellows here. And put that right into this mixture of blue that I have made up. Try to skew it a little more yellow. There's a bit of yellow there. That's a little bit dark. So now I'm going to go. You don't always have to lighten with white. You can lighten with yellow too. So I'm going to get this is going to be a little warm tone, which will be kind of nice to have in there. And again, this is not the final layer. This is just the modeling layer. All right, I'm going to come back over this again at some point. Finer brush, smaller strokes, different color values. I'll wipe my brush. Go back into, I'll use that again, I guess. Now I'm going to add a little bit of white. Maybe a lot of bit of white. Do this area here. You see, you kind of you're just going from color value to color value, figuring out the puzzle. That's it. It's just puzzle pieces. So like one of the things I always think about is even the most realistic painting is an abstract painting. And I'll explain that to you. So the way I look at it is you go buy a puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle from the store, right? It's got a realistic picture on it. You bring it home, you open it up, you dump it out on your coffee table, you flip it all over so you can see all those colored side pieces. You have an abstract piece of work. Well, now I take those same pieces, put them together, and I make the picture on the box. Well, now I have a realistic piece of work. Well, what changed? Not the pieces. Same thing here. These are abstract pieces. I'm taking all these, I can take all these strokes that I've done here and make an abstract painting out of it. So every painting is abstract. So if you think about it that way, you're not worried about making things look realistic. You're thinking about each stroke. You're thinking about each value. You're thinking about each color, each angle, and everything like that. And you're not worried about, oh, is that realistic enough? It will be. It'll just put the things where they're supposed to be, and it will manifest. It will just be there. You don't have to worry about getting it there. Just have fun with it, right? So if you see something, paint it. If you don't see something, don't paint it, right? Unless you're playing around with it and adding different colors and that kind, that's totally fine too. But in general, if you're trying to make something look convincing, just paint what you see and it will come. So that's the way I try to look at these things. So I try not to look at that as an eye right now, right? I just say, oh, well, that angle's off. And actually I'm looking at it right now and that angle is off and I don't like it. So I have to go in there and play with it a little bit. Okay, looking a little better. And right here is where that eyelash will be. I'm not going to touch it just yet, but what I could do is I could just take that out a little bit right now if I wanted to. Right, you can also, you don't even have to, again, you don't have to put on, I have a painting over here of this duck. I didn't want to do all the little hairs and furs and everything on it, but I did it with a palette knife. So while it was wet, I just kind of cut into it like that. And so, you know, subtractive method, take it away. If it's not working, putting it on, take it away. All right, so now I'm going to go up there a little bit more. I'm going to have to pump a little more white out here. So where are you, my white? So I'm using titanium white. I do have a white over here by Holbein called ceramic white. It is a lot like lead white, just not as toxic. So if I need something a little more transparent and a little less destructive, I should say, because titanium white, as you know, will really make your pigments pale and lose their color. So I like to use that one when I really want to keep the pigment in there. Okay, so I've got a bit of white here. I'm gonna go into some of this other stuff that I made. Kind of a bluish. I'm gonna put that in, kind of round this out a little bit here. I'm gonna hone in on it. That's what I do. Don't touch it yet, just leave it. And then when you're ready, put it in. Transition color. Take that white off there because we're going to go back closer to the eye and it gets a little bit darker there. And so now I look back and forth and go, ah, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong, that's right. And that's really how you do it. Put something down. It's going to be wrong. 90-something% of the time, it's going to be wrong. Just get over it. That's what I would say. Get over it. It's going to be wrong. So you're not actually making things right. You're making them less wrong. That's the way I look at it. And then I'll get upset about it. I like to brush a little bit. Put this kind of lid area in here. And now I'm going to do something I don't normally do because I usually wait for this to dry. I'm actually going to stipple this a little bit here. And if you want a little texture, use your brush in different ways. You don't have to always brush it one direction. You can push up if you want, do a little grass that way. You can turn it over and knock things out. Roll it in the paint, roll it sideways, whatever it needs, where you need to get it done. So that'll be, that's the basic shape of the eye. I think that's okay. I kind of like it. And I'm sure I'll change it 6 times before Sunday. Here, so I got the color in my brush. Bring it over here. Glaze that in a little bit. Let's get it to start to take some shape here. It's going to be a little bit lighter, bluer. Not that blue. Okay, right there. Some white and a touch of yellow, it looks like. Right about here. Don't spend too long on one color value because as I'm coming down this way, I see it changing. Like in the very basic sense, the layer before this was just a swoop, right? It's just a length of one color value. But now I'm seeing it's coming a little more gray down this area. So I'm gonna have to add a little bit of the umber and the blue into it. A little over here, that. And when you're doing it on your palette, put the colors next to each other too, so you see how they play off each other down here. If they're playing off each other down here, okay, then they should be okay up there. If they're not, then they're definitely not going to be okay up here. So, make a little, however you want to do it, a little flower of color or a line of it, however you want to do. Some people do like to do gradients. That's fine too. And move your brush around, get some interest. This is where you're going to get your texture. It's not, I'm not following anything on here. I'm only following the value and the shape. I'm not following any patterns of hair or anything like that. I mean, you can, but if you do that, it tends to look a little stiff. So just kind of play with it. So move brush around different directions, turn the brush, a little more yellow there. Again, next to that color there. And these little details, you know, of the muscles and all that kind of thing, you can deal with that later. It doesn't have to be now. This here, I'm not sure if I'll keep that. This is one of those spots that I might not keep that. Like, you got to make decisions as you go too. I don't, you know, I know it's part of the horse. Like, I'll put it in now just to look at it, but I think it's a little distracting, so I might actually just not have that. So I'll you know, maybe tone it down a bit and not worry about it too much. So as you go, you know, just figure out what's, you know, what works, what doesn't work. And you know, if you don't like, if you got a big fluffy dog and you don't like the way some of the fur is going, don't paint it that way, because it could look like that on a split second and then change. So, you know, you want to paint the incident, you want to paint the overall character. All right, you want me to keep going on the eye, or do you want to do something else?
Well, I should tell you, it is about 20 minutes
20
to
out.
6.
Yep.
So maybe we leave, you know, the last 15 minutes for perhaps a little discussion, a little question and answer. We'll let you tell people about classes that you offer, anything, but you still maybe feel free to take these next 5 minutes to continue painting on this, or if you had other ones, or continue, because this is great.
Yeah, I'll keep going with this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Going back into the white again. Well, the white, I say white, but there's other pigment in there too. Actually, a little bit more. I need more paint. See, there's me painting thin again. They don't starve your palette. I'm always starving my palette. Never got out of that habit, but someday I will. That's a little white. And again, overlapping that hair I put on there, that's fine. Don't need it right now. Come back over them again. Overlap, overlap, overlap.
As you're going, Dawn Bashara is asking if maybe you want to show some more of your work also at the end, bring us around. I don't know if you're able to camera wise.
I would love to, but that means I have to drive a half an hour to North Granby because almost every piece I have is in a show up there.
Ah,
I wish I could. I could show you. There's a couple up there that I did off of some. I got a couple here I can show you. Nothing. All the big ones are up there in the vineyard. A nice little reception. Karen Israel and I both did we did a joint show. I don't know if you know Karen Israel. She's a master pastelist. She's from West Hartford. She's been around for 15, 16 years doing this, and she's on all the books and everything for pastel. She's phenomenal. But lucky to live near her, and we decided to do a joint show up there because I didn't have enough pieces. I said, they asked me to do it. I said, how many do you need? And they said 50. I'm like, yeah, I don't have 50.
how many
So,
did they want?
yeah, like 50.
Oh my.
So I
And
didn't know
did
she
the-
has a lot.
Mm.
And,
Did the
she and
reception
I had
already
talked
take
about-
place?
Yeah, it did.
Ah.
It did. Yeah, that was last weekend, I think, or the weekend before.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
it
at the
was,
end, when you chat and you tell us more about where we can see you and how to take classes and that, tell us where that is so people can get up and see
sure.
that show, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Before it comes, yeah, it's coming down on the 30th. So yeah, or actually
Okay.
31st.
All right. And here's another question. Beverly Schermeyer, how do you make the face round out and curve? The photo is very white on the other side of the face and flat.
Yeah, it is. That's one of those things with the photos you got to watch out for because the camera will really mess you up. So cameras have fewer photoreceptors than our eyes do, but they'll also blow out whites and darken black. So if I'm looking outside right now and I see underneath a tree you know, a shadow, I see blues and greens and whatnot in it. But if we took a picture of that, it'd be black. So you have to, so that's why painting from life is good too. So you can actually, and at least seeing from life, you know, just go around and look at things. You don't even have to paint it, just look at it. And getting that experience of seeing those things will help you to adjust this. So if I get through this and I go, yeah, that's way too white. Like right now, I'm still toned. This is actually about a value darker than this, but I'm keeping that way on purpose because I want to save that lighter value for the end where I will put it, you know, the more I paint horses, I paint a lot of horses and I really like them. And the more I paint them, the more I learn about the musculature. So it's good to learn about the anatomy of things too, so that you know where the peaks are, you know where the, that would be that muscle. Why can't I see it? Oh yeah, the camera. So if you know it's there, you can actually play to it. So for here, I know that the two muscles that come down here in the front, the bones that come down the front of the face there, there's a little valley in there. You can kind of see it on here. It's a little bit dark, but it's on there. So I'd have to play that up a little bit and really make that hump happen. But yeah, that's how you do. You really gotta don't focus so much on this. Focus more on that, right? So don't look at it a bit and go, that doesn't look right. How do I make it look right? Well, not by using this. Go online, look at some horses, figure it out, right? You're smart enough. I know a shadow is going to be here. That's where I'm putting it. You know, and it doesn't have to be exactly where this horse's one would be, because who's going to see your source? Nobody. They're going to see that, right? Nobody cares what that looks like, right? That answer the
So
question?
maybe one more minute, Mike, to finish up, and then we'll see what you can tell us
Sure.
about people following you, pursuing classes with you, whatever you'd like to plug and announce to us.
Sure, I'll do that. I'll do that now. Yeah, sure. So actually I got one. Where's the card? Let me put the card.
Well, first, before we, I guess, so are there any questions? Should we first, anybody else out there while we're still in front of the painting here? Let's see, any more chats out there? Chat questions? All right. I think that, like you said, you were talking and going through everything you were doing. So you covered probably everything that people could have imagined.
Yeah. So, and you know, we didn't see the details. Obviously, so I'm going to be going over this probably 2 or 3 more layers. So I'll come back and refine a little more. It's like a sculptor, right? They start with a big block. You take off the big chunks first. Then you go back in, you take off smaller chunks. Then you take off smaller chunks, smaller, until it's, you know, what you want it to be. So I'll come back and I'll do more work. You know, I'm going to finish up over here, but I'll do more work on this and, you know, refine it, go smaller brush, and then, you know, refine those values and those temperatures, that kind of thing.
Okay, I think another question just came in. Yeah, haha. Somebody just said, love the easel. Love to know how to get one.
Oh,
you might have
I'd have to build one for you. I know.
What?
I'll have to start building them, yeah.
Well, maybe put that out there too. That'll take you from painting though, right? Starting to build the
easels. It will. I started building, I built 4 Prashad boxes so far, and I still haven't figured out the one that I want.
Oh my gosh.
So those are all in the garage wasting space. So someday I'll get there. But all right, so
on the edges, on the edge of the horse where it's very flat, would you use a transition color to make it rounded?
Here, you mean?
Like, yeah, the other side, the white side. Yeah, would you make a transition color, like a warmer color, or?
This one actually, yes, this one will actually be warmer because I would be thinking about the reflection of her skin.
Yeah.
Right. So it would be kind of reflecting on it. Would be very, very subtle though, because this is fur and not skin or, you know, metal or something like that. So it'd be really super subtle, but you can play it up a little bit more than real life, and it will read well. Yeah. So right there, I would do a little transition color for sure. Yeah, because it does turn into darkness there. So yeah, this right now is just this dark here, and I really haven't finished this yet. So as I'm coming from here, I'll start going this way and then put those two together and then transition them from there. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, unless we have another question, we thank you so much. And you've gone through every detail and you've explained, and what you've got going there is beautiful. So I wish somehow we'll see the finished product. Send an email maybe to the group.
I'll send it.
Maybe when it's done to Marianne.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Yeah, we're in the process of selling the house now. We're moving within town, but we're taking advantage of the market. So the next couple months are going to be crazy. It's already crazy.
Wow.
Got everybody here helping. We're fixing things up again, like the bricks that I did.
Oh my gosh, that's no easy
But,
job, laying bricks.
And then in the meantime, I got to paint for all these other things. So one of the first things that we've got coming up, I don't know if you've heard of Simsbury Open Studios before. We're a group in Simsbury of artists, about 15 of us. And every September, we do a show on the weekend, which is a fantastic time, especially to come to Simsbury. We've got great restaurants, we've got great places to stay. It's a really, really nice town. And we open up our studios for everybody for the entire weekend. So it's Saturday and Sunday, and this year it's the 23rd and 24th. You can see that there. And that's from 10 to 4 each day. And you can just come in and there's stuff to buy, there's people to talk to, we can talk about art. And it's a great thing to just go around to everybody, have a lunch, go down to the park, have a lunch, come back, go between people's houses, stay overnight if you want. And it's just really, especially when it's really nice out, it's a great time to do that. So that's the 23rd and 24th. And then the
Mike,
weekend after that.
Send that to me and I will distribute that.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, thank you. The weekend after that, the September 30th, October 1st, and October 2nd, and this is a super important one for me, so please come, is at Lime Arts Association. I will be teaching how to oil paint hands. This is a 2.5 day workshop. It's from like 1 to 4 on Friday or something like that, 1 to 5. And then the next 2 days are full days. And so I'm super excited about it. It's my first like actual workshop. It's my first workshop, and it's at Lime, which I love. And then hopefully if I get enough people in there, I can do more, which I'm really excited to do because I love to teach. So 12 spots available in that one class. So they'll fill up fast. So if you want to get in on that, get in on that. Then the week after that, October 7th is 1 day from 10 to 4. I'm at Farmington Valley Arts Center. Last year, I was sharing a space with Sue Nooney, who is a jewelry maker. She allowed me to be in her space. It's a juried event, and about 18 to 20 artists are allowed in to share the space with an existing resident artist, and we have a show. So that's October 7th from 10 to 4. So make one of the shows, come to the class, and we'll keep scheduling more stuff.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And then your website, tell everybody one more
Sure,
time.
it is. Yep. And I'll spell it for you because it's hard to say my last name, but M as in Mike, and then the last name is LAIUPPA fineart.com.
Okay. And Mike, are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram, and it's just Mike_Laiuppa, LAIUPPA, last name. Same.
Okay. We have to
Yeah.
all hit Mike up on Instagram and
Yeah.
try to see if you see familiar names, follow, and hopefully people will
thing.
follow back. All
Yeah.
of these artists here.
Yeah,
Watching
I
right
try
now.
to fill my feed with that. I try to fill my feed with all art, and I don't want to see the politics. I just want to see art. That's all I want to see.
Yeah.
So I start weeding them out. Yeah.
I'm guilty. I have a lot of cats, I have to admit.
Right. Oh, that's good because then you can paint them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have many thank yous rolling in, just people very happy with you
Great.
talking through your process and teaching so well. So
And thank you
people
for
are
having
very
me. This is
happy.
fantastic. Yeah, I love this. This is great. I love sharing this and talking about this with people. This is wonderful. So thank you all very much.
That's great. And congratulations that you're up there at the Lime Art Association. That's an honor to teach up there. So
Thank you. Thank you.
good job on that. That's excellent. Hopefully people will sign up for that or find you
Yeah.
in those various spots.
That'd be
that
great.
you
It'll be a
just-
fun class.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
you.
All right. So just so yes, Mike, thank you. It was amazing. Thank you very much. And then
Thank you.
just remember everybody, that we just have that opening reception, for the Madison Art Society juried show, which should be a very fun night. Last year we had almost 150, 180 people. So they're becoming very fun, well-attended events. So keep that in mind. And of course there'll be food and drink, nibbles and drink and live music and amazing art. So that's August 10th, 5 to 7:30. And then we do have another demo, and this one will be live at the Scranton Library. Elena Gerard is one of our Madison Art Society board members. So she will be demonstrating watercolor and gouache painting. So everybody, thank you so much. And also, we've got Marianne, of course, who organizes all of this. Jen Thompson, who handles the behind the scenes technical aspects, which I know I need help with that. And Beverly, thank you for all the posts on Facebook. We are a team effort over here, and we definitely would love more people to get involved. So we're a very fun group. So help us bring art to the masses. Okay, so everybody have a great night, and thank you. Thank you, Mike.
You too. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Hillary. Thank you, Mike.
Bye, Mike.